What's up people and welcome back to another video. This is the first part of a Tiki-Taka episode I did with Eelco Schattorie, who is a UEFA Pro License coach from Holland. He's the youngest ever Pro License coach from the KNVB and was most recently the head coach at Kerala Blasters in the Indian Super League. Prior to that, he managed at the highest level in Holland, in the Middle East, in Africa, and in India. So make sure you watch this whole episode to know about his story and his opinion on various other things. Also, if you're new around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and comment down below what you think I should be asking in the next episode. If you like what you see, make sure you like the video and share it to anyone who you think would benefit from watching this. And don't forget to turn on notifications so that you get notified when I post part 2 of this video. Also follow Eelco on all his social platforms, the links are in the description. Welcome to Tiki-Taka. We have different sections in this series and each section is titled something football related. So the first section is called Back Pass. And as the name suggests, this is the section we take it back to how it all started for Eelco Schattorie. So my first question to you is, obviously, we know that you became a UEFA Pro license holder at 28, which is the youngest from the KNVB. But before that, what were you doing? Were you playing professionally? What is the story of Eelco Schattorie before he became a UEFA Pro license holder?
That's very easy. I was a very talented player. I started as a wing player, as an attacker. I started football from when I was 8 years old. Got scouted recruited by a professional team in Holland called Fortuna Sittard. This was at the age of 11, I think, 11 or 12. Um, Went through the whole youth academy of this club. When I was 18, I was on the verge. I already trained one or two times with the first team, but at that moment, I lost my mother to suicide, and that had a huge impact on my football career in the way that the next 2 3 years I was I couldn't perform. Your mind is not fully focused there. I still stayed with football, but in the year after it happened, my performance were not good. I had to leave the club. Then I went to a like it's a third division team in Holland. I stayed there for 1 year, and then within that same year, I got recruited for a team in Belgium, who play on the third and second division. It was semi-professional. At the same time, I was doing like a sports university, and for that sports university, I had to do also internships for coaching, and it was not only football. There were more sports, but football was my main thing, of course. And because of that internship, I already got involved with coaching at VVV Venlo. That's the club where I worked for 11 years. So that was all together. So I was doing and the football and the coaching, and I got offered a very small contract at the Lommel FC, and this is the highest division in Belgium. But I didn't have the full motivation. I didn't have the full drive, and I really decided to go into to coaching. That sounds very strange because I could see because I was very talented, and I could see with myself that I was not making progress, and I was, to be honest, also not really in the mood. Years later, like 4 or 5 years later, I really regretted it because football is still the most beautiful thing to do. But if I would have chosen the other way around, I probably would not have the coaching experience that I have now. So I decided to go into the coaching part, and right away I got offered. I think I was 2021. I got offered the assistant coach job at VVV Venlo. That was at the highest level. This coach, Frans Curver, he offered me. He saw me working every day when the first team was passing by, and I was working with the younger teams. He thought that I was doing a good job, and he asked me if I wanted to join him as an assistant coach. I did, So that's how my career as coach started off. Age 24, I was already an assistant coach of the first team. The head coach, he went to Japan, I think. Yeah, and I took over for 3 games like a caretaker, and the 3 games was undefeated. That's still the record of the club. I'm very proud of that. But it's only 3 games and one cup game. And then the new head coach came and he took over, and I stayed with this club till 2001. And in the meantime, I also got to the UEFA Pro license course and finished that when I was 28. That's how I got actually into coaching.
All right, that's a very nice story actually, because no one knows that you were a very talented player. You cannot find it anywhere on the internet actually. So I'm very glad that you could share that. Okay, so my next question in this section is give us a brief description of your journey from Netherlands to Africa to Middle East to India.
Yeah, the head coach at that time of VVV Venlo, Jan Versleijen, he left for an adventure to the Middle East, to Abu Dhabi, Al Jazeera, and I wanted to do something different. I never planned my career. I'm a very adventurous person, and I asked him if I could follow him. I went with him to the Middle East. I met my wife there, and the first 4 years in the Middle East, I stayed with the same coach. That was the United Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi, then Saudi Arabia, then Dubai, and then again Saudi Arabia. And after those 4 years, this coach he went to Australia for the Australian under 23 national team. And I stayed in the Middle East because of my wife, and I got a job offered again with in Saudi Arabia with a club that I already worked for. In that period, from when I first came to Middle East to now, I've been in Africa for Red Bull Salzburg. They had an academy there. I've been to India the first time in 2013, I think. This was for Prayat United. And yeah, you move around a bit. So in the Middle East, I worked in Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, in Oman, in the United Arab Emirates. In Africa, I was in Ghana, and in India, everybody knows I had basically one, two, three, four clubs: United Sports Club, East Bengal, Kerala Blasters, and before that, Northeast. And as I said, for me, I try to go back to Europe, but it is very, very difficult if you're outside of Europe, outside the vision of everybody. They forget you. So that's not always easy, to be honest.
All right, that's quite an amazing journey, and that leads me on well to my next question. So, in this wide career that you had, what do you consider your best moment?
See, there's something that is always very difficult for people to understand. I think, in basically in football, if you don't win a championship, you're not a good coach. I never win a championship because almost all the jobs that I got, they were clubs where you step in halfway the season, where you have to take over, or you can't get into a club who is into a transition, and that is not always easy. But if you look at the results that I picked out, there are a few. There are like 4 clubs that I saved from relegation, and sometimes that is even more difficult than to win a championship, because championships are basically decided on the quality of the players that you have. Because a coach is nothing without the quality of the players. So my achievements is a few savings teams of relegation. United Sports Club, who at that time suddenly got a big sponsor. I also took over halfway. They win the IFA Shield. In Saudi Arabia, we win a cup for the under 23 league. If I have to pick really one, I go back to Saudi Arabia, Al Ettifaq. This is the highest league in Saudi Arabia, and actually in Asia, the Saudi league is pretty high. And I saved them from relegation. They were like before last. I couldn't get any players, and we had only 9 games to go. That was a really, really difficult job, and I managed to save them. For me, that was one of the best achievements personally. People will not see that as amazing because in the end they see it as winning a title. But if you once are a little bit lucky and you have a title on your CV, things become easier. But in the end, there are many coaches where at one club they were a champion and another club they relegated. So you highly depend on the quality of the players that you have. And then a good coach, he brings something extra to it. That's how I see it.
All right. All right. Okay. With that, we end the first section, back pass, and we move on to the second section that I call remontada. And the reason I call it remontada is because it's all about comebacks and challenges and mental health in football. When you started off, you said that you lost your mother when you just started playing. So I would get a lot from you from this section. The first question is, what effect does mental health have on football?
Um, Anything in life, and I mean anything that is special, anyone who wants to reach something special needs to be, of course, needs to have a skill. You need to have the quality to the talent to do so. But in the end, mental strength is the most important thing. I see so many talents in my life, and I could mention right away one player that I think of, who is a really good player, but mentally not that strong. I can guarantee you that player will never ever reach the highest level. And I saw so many talents in my life that being mentally strong is important. Now, mentally healthy, yeah, what does that mean? To me, being healthy in the mind is that you have a clear idea of who you are, that you don't focus on external things or too much on money. I see, for instance, in Indian football, some young players or good players, they play two good games and suddenly they are the heroes and they get contracts for the year after. Is like out of their mind. It's like a little bit out of proportion, and suddenly we don't see them anymore. So mental health is basically also stay grounded and know where you are. A good example for that is, for instance, with Kerala Blasters last year. What I had is Jackson. This guy has in his mind perfect, organized way of thinking,
Mindset.
and he has mindset, and I think that is very important. But I always say it: you need to learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So in uncomfortable situations, learn to be comfortable because the more you deal with setbacks, the stronger you get. And I think Bart Obeje is a fantastic example of someone who always motivated the player, even when we had a setback, and of course together with me. But as a player, always yeah mentally being strong and motivate yourself again. It's more important even than having talent.
All right. So that sets me up well to my for my next question. So when it comes to you and your role as a coach, how do you deal with situations where you're feeling stressed and where you're feeling down?
Only one huge shortcoming that is dealing with injustice, especially in India. For instance, if you look at the standard of the refereeing, is not very high, and I mean that with respect, and it's also not a problem. But the moment a referee makes a mistake, and somehow he doesn't want to, let me say it like this: if I would be a referee and I make a mistake, or the people think I made a mistake, I will say, I saw it like that. What you want me to do? But if you all the time being arrogant and say no, and if you and do like this, you only make somebody more angry. And I'm very vulnerable for that. As in, if there's injustice, you need to have the chance to speak. And in India, with the referees, that is very difficult. That means if you're not able to have even a little bit of conversation, then you're lacking in dealing with that pressure as a referee. For me, I need to deal with that injustice. That's the only part that where I say I have a weakness. All the rest mentally, I don't care if the whole stadium starts shouting how bad I am. Then my chest go up and I feel still very comfortable, confident because I know what I'm doing. I have that I really don't care about. But injustice, that is a weakness that triggers me, that can make me angry.
And do you tell yourself something in that moment to calm yourself down? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I am very good. I'm very good in reading body language of a person. That means if I challenge you, like almost 70% of language is body language. and I'm very good in reading that. So the moment when I into a game or into training with a player, it doesn't matter where it becomes stressful or is an argument or whatever. I know exactly what I'm doing, and let me say like this: 8 out of 10 times, I will be always in control. 1 or 2 times, you will always. It's not like in every situation you are in full control. That is nonsense because everyone has emotions. But overall, I know till where I can go.
All right. All right. Because you have such a good reputation of developing young players, my next question to you is what is the right mindset to have for young players who want to break into the first team?
In my last interviews, I mentioned a few times, especially because of the lockdown now, that everyone stays home on the series on that I on Netflix, The Last Dance on Michael Jordan. It shows fantastically how, first of all, mentally strong you need to be to reach the top, and it gives some really good insight in when you are young, when you're impatient, when you think you know it all, especially when it's being impatient and you want to play all the time, then you need somebody beside you who guides you. And in football or any sport, it is always a very, very good thing. But on the other side, if the player himself, the younger player, the young talent, does not want to learn and he just wants to be stubborn, yeah, and you will get nowhere. And I think a lot of young players, although in India it's not that much, because overall Indian people are pretty humble and want to learn. If you go to Holland, for instance, younger players are way more verbal. They speak out way more, and you need to find the right balance there. So for a young player, it is very, very important to be open-minded. Don't just follow, because you need to have some kind of stubbornness, and because otherwise you need to try sometimes. But it's a process, and it's very important for a coach to know how to deal with that and how to guide somebody. But in the end, also the player needs to needs to find his way there. And there are also players who will never learn. They are fantastically, have very good skills, but they will always stay stubborn and they always find excuses for it. If the coach doesn't like me this, or they always find excuses. And yeah, that is it's an interesting process.
All right. Okay, so that ends the second section of Remontada, and we move into the next section that I call Gegen pressing. This is a little quick fire, so you have to answer as fast as you can. The first question is the biggest influence on your coaching career. Johan Cruyff. All right. One superpower that you wish you had. Reading minds. All right. Favorite Indian food.
The bread,
Sorry?
the
Roti.
bread.
Best match you have ever witnessed live.
Best live match. Barcelona. I forget who. We were on a training camp, of no, on a holiday. Barcelona against. I forgot the opponent, to be honest. Was not a very important match, but a very high scoring match it was. It is back in the 90s with Ivan de la Peña was still playing for Barcelona. I forget who the opponent was. I'm sorry.
All right. Okay. Most talented player you have ever coached in your whole career.
The most talented player I ever met and trained with was George Weah.
Oh, wow. Nice. Okay. The funniest experience you've had in football.
In Saudi Arabia, where we are on the verge on making a substitution, and the player is about to go inside the game, and the referee says no, not allowed. And the reason why he couldn't go in because his hair was not cut properly. His hair was shaved here on the side. This was in Saudi Arabia, and he was not allowed to go inside. It was a very, very weird. But afterwards, it was, yeah, very funny.
All right. Okay. One special talent that you have that no one knows about.
Good dancer.
Oh, you're a good dancer. Not bad.
I love music, and I can dance very well.
All right. All right. I hope we can get to see that someday.
With New Year, actually, this New Year, last New Year in the hotel. Some players they saw me dance. They were surprised, like, "Oh, coach, what is this?"
All right. Okay. One thing you love most about India.
The humbleness, and basically there is no problem. Indians normally don't see many problems. They will always say, "Tomorrow is a new day. Let's go."
All
No
right.
problem.
Toughest team you have ever faced as a coach?
I think in Saudi Arabia, Al Ittihad, at that time they were like really good team. As a coach, you ask, right? You ask me as a
Yes, as a
coach.
coach.
Yeah, yeah. Al Ittihad from Saudi Arabia.
All right. One thing that players do that makes you angry.
Being lazy.
All right. Okay. If you had the chance to coach any team in the world, which team would you coach? Oh, Barcelona. All right. Is that because of the influence of Johan Cruyff?
Yeah, yes, but from when I was young, there are only two clubs I always support. That is Ajax in Ajax Amsterdam and Barcelona in Spain. Already from when I was very young, and I never changed. These are my two favorite clubs.
All right. Okay. So that ends the gegenpressing section. And we move on to the next section that I have called halftime tactics. That's the end of part 1 of this video. Make sure you stay tuned for part 2 of this episode. In the meantime, watch the previous episodes of Tiki-Taka that I did with Keen Lewis and Javier Pindado.